The restaurant was bright and alive that Saturday afternoon, filled with chatter, clinking glasses, and the fragrance of fresh bread drifting from the kitchen. In the middle of the bustle, a man sat at a corner table with his little girl beside him. His expensive suit and polished watch suggested a man of great wealth, but his tired eyes and the way he kept glancing at his daughter revealed something deeper. A wariness, a loneliness he could not hide. This was Adrian Cross, a powerful CEO known for reshaping companies with his ruthless intelligence, but here, in this moment, he was not a titan of industry. He was just a single father, nervously waiting for a blind date, wishing more than anything that someone could see the man behind the title. And beside him, his daughter Ava, a delicate 7-year-old with curls falling into her big brown eyes, sat quietly, her small stomach rumbling as she tried to pretend she wasn't hungry. Adrian hadn't realized yet that he'd skipped breakfast for her, too focused on getting her dressed nicely, too focused on making a good impression. Ava stared at the menu she couldn't read, biting her lip, her hunger outweighing her patience. Before the woman Adrian was supposed to meet ever arrived, fate had already placed someone else in their path. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of simple moments to change lives, take a second right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal, because this story will remind you how love often comes when you least expect it. The waitress appeared with a warm smile, her black apron tied neatly over her modest dress. Her name was Marisol Vega, a woman whose life had been anything but easy. She was in her late 20s, her hair pulled back hastily, her shoes worn from double shifts. Behind her smile lived quiet battles, student debt, caring for her ailing mother at home, nights where she went hungry just to make sure there was enough food on the table for the family. Yet, in her eyes burned resilience, the kind that only comes from carrying weight heavier than one's shoulders should bear. Marisol noticed Ava first. She saw how the girl pressed a hand over her stomach, how her eyes lingered not on the toys outside the restaurant window, but on a bread basket left at another table. Most people would have ignored it, rushing through orders. But Marisol's heart had a way of catching these small, silent cries. Without waiting for Adrian to even order, she brought a plate of warm rolls and gently placed it before Ava. "Here you go, sweetheart. Something to keep you happy while you wait." Ava's eyes widened as if the simple gift was treasure. She broke a piece, tasted it, and let out a small sigh of relief. Adrian looked up, startled. No one ever did that. Not without permission, not without checking the bill, not without glancing at his wealth first. But here was this woman, feeding his daughter before she even acknowledged him. Something about that pierced through the armor he had built around himself for years. Adrian's blind date arrived shortly after, a polished woman in designer clothes, her perfume arriving before she did. She was beautiful in the way magazines describe beauty, sharp, cold, distant. She barely glanced at Ava, more interested in Adrian's company shares than the little girl coloring quietly on a napkin. Every sentence she spoke circled back to money, influence, parties. And as the meal dragged on, Adrian found himself withdrawing, his heart tugged instead toward the waitress who occasionally checked on them, each time giving Ava a smile that made the little girl light up. Marisol treated them like people, not like a transaction. She knelt to Ava's level when she spoke, listening to her stories, complimenting her drawing of a princess. She brought a small bowl of fruit from the kitchen, whispering, "This one's on me," and Adrian could not stop watching. It was as if, in this crowded restaurant, there were two worlds, one where superficiality glittered falsely across the table from him, and one where quiet kindness bloomed each time Marisol passed by. As the sun filtered through the restaurant windows, Adrian's mind began to wander. He remembered the day his wife had left, leaving him with a newborn daughter and a heart that had since hardened. He had thrown himself into work, building an empire so his little girl would never lack security. But he had failed at the simple things, packing lunches, bedtime stories, slowing down long enough to listen. And now, watching a stranger kneel and feed his daughter fruit with genuine tenderness, he realized how much Ava had been missing, how much he himself had been missing. The blind date ended abruptly. Adrian made an excuse, shaking hands politely, but his chest felt hollow. He wasn't thinking about the woman he had just parted from. He was thinking about the waitress still weaving between tables, carrying burdens he could only imagine. Later, when Marisol brought the check, Adrian studied her closely. She looked exhausted, her apron slightly stained, her hands red from hot plates. Yet her smile remained steady, humble, filled with a warmth money could never buy. He wanted to say something, to thank her, but the words stuck in his throat. Instead, he wrote a generous tip, more than she probably made in a week, and slipped a note beneath it that simply said, "Thank you for seeing my daughter." That night, Adrian couldn't sleep. The image of Marisol laughing with Ava haunted him. It wasn't infatuation. It was something deeper, an ache he hadn't felt in years. He had seen hundreds of businesswomen, models, professionals. But none had looked at his daughter the way Marisol did. None had made his heart soften the way hers had. The following week, Adrian returned to the restaurant, not as a CEO trying to impress a date, but as a father with his daughter by his side. Ava squealed when she saw Marisol again. This time, Adrian asked her about her life, and she hesitated, surprised that someone who looked so wealthy would care. Slowly, she shared fragments of her story, how she worked 2 jobs to care for her sick mother, how dreams of studying nursing had been put on hold, how sometimes kindness was all she had left to give when she had nothing else. Adrian listened, truly listened, in a way few ever had. He saw in her not just hardship but strength, dignity, and a beauty that radiated from resilience. That day, Adrian left the restaurant not with a phone number, but with something far more valuable. A reminder that wealth meant nothing if it could not be used to touch lives like Marisol's. Days turned into weeks. Adrian found excuses to return, each time watching Ava and Marisol grow closer, each time feeling his guarded heart crack open a little more. He began to admire the small things, the way she tied Ava's shoelaces without being asked, the way she remembered Adrian liked his coffee, the way she never once treated him like a man of money, but rather like a man trying, failing, and trying again to be a good father. But the true turning point came on a quiet afternoon when Ava fell asleep at the table, her head resting on Adrian's arm. Marisol walked over, gently placing her own folded apron beneath the little girl's cheek so she wouldn't be uncomfortable. Adrian's eyes met hers, and in that wordless exchange, everything shifted. He realized it wasn't about grand gestures or blind dates. It was about who would love his daughter as their own, who would see past the suit and the fortune, who would feed the child first without being asked. For the first time in years, Adrian felt hope. Hope that love was not lost to him. Hope that his daughter might one day have a mother figure who loved her unconditionally. And as he left that evening, he found the courage to ask Marisol if she would allow him to take her and her mother to dinner one day. Somewhere quiet, somewhere where they could breathe without worry. Her eyes welled with tears, not because of the offer, but because she saw that his intention was genuine. She nodded, and in that small nod lay the beginning of something beautiful. By the time the golden hour light streamed through the city streets, Adrian walked with Ava holding his hand tighter than ever before. He felt lighter, freer, no longer just a CEO, no longer just a single dad surviving. He was a man rediscovering love in its purest form, the love of kindness, the love of simple gestures, the love of a woman who had nothing material to give but had given everything that truly mattered. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Keenness Journal. Your support helps us continue sharing powerful stories of love, kindness, and second chances. And before we end, we'd love to know, what's the kindest thing a stranger has ever done for you? Please share your story in the comments. It might just inspire someone else today, because sometimes the greatest love stories don't begin with diamonds or candlelit dinners. Sometimes they begin with a waitress who feeds a hungry child first and steals a father's heart forever.